Hello my friends, welcome back or welcome if you are new. My name is Emily and I make YouTube videos about books and about beauty. So today we are going to be talking about some beauty basics. So this is a series I wanted to create on my channel to help out folks who are a little bit newer to makeup or maybe have dabbled in makeup but aren't really sure what they're doing. I know you might look at my face today and think, that girl does not know what she's doing when it comes to makeup, but let me just say it's an artistic, stylistic choice. And normally I wear glasses, so I can kind of pull off crazier eye makeup and it's not as noticeable, but I hate how my glasses reflect my ring light, so I take them off to film. But that being said, today we're going to be talking about some terms that you might hear all the time if you watch beauty videos. And those terms are cool toned and warm toned. So people are talking about these terms all the time, but a lot of the times they don't explain what they mean. So if they say, oh, I'm really into cool toned eyeshadows these days, or I'm so over those warm tones, or I love that warm toned palette for fall, right? What do those terms actually mean? So that is what we're going to be talking about today.
Honey?
Okay, so I'm going to scooch over just a little bit because I want to put up here a picture of the color wheel. So this is something that's really important when we are talking about the different shades and tones of makeup. So the basic color wheel is the foundational element of art and of color theory, which is the fancy term. I'm not trained in anything like that. I don't know a ton, but I know the basics, so I can help you with the basics. So our cool colors are blue and green and purple, colors like that, and our warm colors are red and orange and yellow. So why do we hear people talking about warm tones and cool tones when they are talking about a brown eyeshadow, right? If I just said that our cool tones are blue and green and purple and our warm tones are red and orange and yellow, brown is nowhere on that color wheel, right? So those colors can be added to other colors to add some warmth or some coolness. So that means that sometimes browns are a little more reddish brown. You might notice this if you go to blend out an eyeshadow. It might kind of turn orangey or yellowy on the edges, right? Or if you are using a contour shade, but it kind of comes off a little orange on you, right? Or a bronzer that comes off a little bit orange. That is a warm toned bronzer or contour because it's got those orange or red undertones to it, right? It's brown when you look at it, but when you blend it out and when you kind of break it apart into the colors that make it up, it might be a little bit more yellow or red or orange. The same thing with cool tones, right? So red is a warm toned color, a plain true red, right? That's a warm tone. But there are some red lipsticks that look terrible on me, and I'm sure you have experienced that as well, right? That's because my skin, right, it's this like beigey white person skin color, right? But the undertones of my skin are a little bit more yellow. And that means if I put on a bluish red lipstick, right, it's still red, it's not blue. But when they made that red pigment, they mixed in a little bit of blue, right? Not enough to make it purple, but enough to make it what people call a blue-based red. And so that means that that color might not look very good on me because it doesn't match what my skin looks like. But a warmer red, a red that's mixed with a little bit of orange, does look good on me. All right, so I've kind of gotten into the next part that I wanted to talk about, and that is the undertones of your skin. So this is what people talk about all the time, right? But almost never define. So your skin undertone can be warm, cool, or more neutral. So like we were just talking about with browns in makeup or reds in lipstick, right? The same thing applies to your skin. So whether you are pale like me, or even paler than me, or you have the deepest, darkest, richest skin that there is, you have an undertone of some kind, right? Your skin is a shade of brown, right? Even if you're super, super, super pale, your skin is still a version of brown. But it might have, like if you were trying to paint your skin, you might add some more black to deepen it up, or you might add some more white to make it a little more pale, right? But you might not get an exact match if you were mixing up that paint, if you just had brown, black, and white. You might need to add a smidge of orange or yellow to kind of turn your skin more, or turn the paint into more of the color of your skin. If you had to add that orange or that yellow or that red, that means that your skin would be a warm undertone. And if you were trying to match your skin tone and you had to add a little bit of blue or purple, right? That means you have a cooler undertone to your skin. But if you were able to match it with just that brown, black, and white, or maybe you had to add a little bit of orange and then a little bit of blue, right? That means your skin would be more neutral. So we're still talking about skin, right? We're not talking about paint. That's just kind of an example. So how do you actually figure out whether your skin undertone is warm, cool, or neutral? So there are a few tricks to this, and they are all over the internet, but I will just go over a couple. The first is to look at your veins on your wrist. So they're kind of hard to see, but your veins through your skin can give you kind of a hint, right? And I like to use all these tricks together. I think they kind of give you a fuller picture. But sometimes your veins might look blue or purple, like mine kind of do on my hand right there. That indicates that you might have a cooler undertone. Your veins also might look super green. And if your veins look really green, that indicates you might have a warmer undertone. Okay? So mine, I told you that my undertone is warmer, but my veins look blue. So that kind of tells you that it's not always 100% accurate. Another one that some people do is to put on jewelry, right? Do you feel like you look better in gold or in silver jewelry? I know I feel like I look better in gold jewelry. I feel like silver jewelry just, it just kind of sits on me. It's just jewelry. But gold jewelry makes me kind of glow a little more. It makes me look better, I feel like. So that indicates that I have a warmer undertone because I look better in gold. But if you look better in silver, if that brings out your skin, brightens you up, makes you look, makes you feel better about the way that you look, then that indicates you might have a cooler undertone. You could also find a piece of clothing or a lipstick or something like that it's warmer or it's cooler. And you can hold it up or put it on, and that would give you an indication whether you are warmer or cooler, because if you held up a color that doesn't quite match with your skin, right, if it's super cool and your skin is super warm, then that cool clothing is gonna make you look kind of sick, maybe a little washed out, just not looking your best. But if you hold up like the good color for you, you're gonna be like, dang, like I look really good in this, right? So that, for me, those colors are like a rusty burnt orange. Whenever I wear that, I'm always like, wow, I'm like really feeling myself today. Like I'm looking great, right? So I wore like a mustard yellow dress on my birthday because that made me feel super good because I know I look good in that color. It brings out the tones in my skin. So the last way that I wanted to talk about is by comparing your skin to other people's. And this really works best in real life if you're with somebody. So it's harder to do by pictures because lighting is different, angles are different, all of that stuff is different. But if you have your arm and you line it up next to somebody else's arm, like you're comparing your tans from the summer, right? This works really well for me because when I hold my arm up next to most other people's arms who are of a similar skin tone to me, right, a similar level of paleness or deepness, when I hold my arm up, it looks so yellow and the other person's arm looks so pink. And this has happened to me with a ton of people. If I've just had my arm next to them, I'm like, wow. So that to me gives me an indication that my undertone is warm while the other person's is cooler. So if every single one of these little tests gave you like a different result, your undertone might be more neutral, which means you could kind of go either way. And as always, I'm clearly a firm believer that there are no rules in makeup. So, it's just some information to help you make decisions and just help you be more knowledgeable. It's not a rule, right? That's how I approach every one of these like rules from fashion and makeup and beauty and stuff like that. It helps me decide if I want to intentionally break that rule or if I want to go along with it, right? It helps me know the effect I'm going to get from my beauty choices. That's all. So now that we have figured out our own undertones, we can decide what kind of eyeshadow we would like to go for. I'm using eyeshadow as the example because that's my favorite step in my makeup routine. So today I've got some greens and blues on my eyes, so I'm using more of cooler tones. And as you can see, it's kind of like the eyeshadow is popping, right? And it's not just because it's a bright color, because honestly, this green that's on most of my lid isn't even that bright. But because it is very different from my natural undertones, the first thing you see when you look at me is my lipstick, which is more of a bluey pink, and my eyes, which are cooler colors, right? They pop out at you. But if I was wearing a nice warm red, right, the red lip would still pop, But if I was wearing, you know, a yellow, or even if I wear a bright orange eye, it looks more natural and it's less likely to be the first thing that you notice. Even if it's like a bright neon orange, it still seems like it blends more into my skin because that is a warm color. But I know a lot of people out there, especially a lot of people who watch my videos, are not necessarily people who absolutely are obsessed with crazy colorful makeup like I am, right? Not everybody's into that tropical bird look, and that's totally fine. So I'm going to be using some examples with some brown eyeshadows that I have, some neutral eyeshadows. And we're going to be talking about warm, cool, and neutral eyeshadows so that you can kind of look at a palette and see what would bring out your natural tones better, what would add contrast, because to me, if I'm using warmer tones, that is kind of, I don't like this phrase, but enhancing my natural beauty, right? That's more of just bringing out what's already there. It blends together, it matches, it feels more like one cohesive thing. But if I'm using cool tones, it's more of a statement. It pops more because it's a contrast to what I often have naturally in my skin. So I'm going to show you my favorite warm tone palette, which you have definitely seen if you watched my last video. And that is this California Love palette from ColourPop. So you can look at this and right away, you can tell this is a warm neutral palette, right? And it's not just because of this like bright yellow shade, right? Or of the yellow packaging. Those are warm colors, but even if you look at this brown, I think even the least expert of colors can look at this and say that's a reddish brown, right? So I'm gonna swatch that for you. All right, so we've got that nice reddish brown there, right? And this even applies to lighter colors too, right? I picked that one because it was obvious, but this shade right here is kind of a yellowy brown, right? So that's still a warm brown, so I'll swatch that one as well. That pulls a little more orange, right? So we've got this reddish brown and this orangey yellow brown right there. So I don't have a ton of cool tones in my collection that are not bright colors, because usually if I'm going to contrast like the natural tones in my skin, I would rather contrast them with like a bright, colorful look like this, because I feel like that just, you know, it seems like more of an intentional statement than like something is just not quite perfect with my eyeshadow, if that makes sense. But I have this palette from Tarte. It is the Rainforest of the Sea 2, I think. And this thing is so reflective. I'm sorry if I'm blinding you. But this has some warmer shades in it, but there's also these much cooler shades on this side. So this one is really more of like a grayish black, and this is kind of like a grayish shade. So I'm gonna swatch these. And then this one is a deep but cool brown. So I'm gonna swatch these two for you. But you can see when I put them next to each other, these stark difference between these warm shades and these cool shades. And I picked pretty extreme examples to be able to kind of show you the difference. So that is the difference between warm and cool toned browns. But what about neutral? So I was looking to see if I have any neutral browns. And I think that this e.l.f. bite-sized palette in Cream and Sugar, man, the lighting is making it really washed out, but I think this is about a pretty neutral palette. So I'm gonna go ahead and swatch this brown here to show you how that is different from the warm and the cool browns. All right, so when you look at this shade, it kind of, you know, it looks warmer than these shades, but it's definitely cooler than these like extremely warm shades, right? So this I would say is more of a neutral shade of brown. Again, so makeup always comes back to your personal preference. What people like to wear on their face is completely up to them. But it is important, I think, to be able to differentiate between warm tones and cool tones. The first reason is to make sure that you know what you're putting on your face, right? You want to be able to predict what the outcome is going to be. And that's what I chatted about contrast versus kind of blending together. And the other thing is that cool toned eyeshadows tend to work best with cool toned eyeshadows, and warm toned eyeshadows tend to work best with warm toned eyeshadows. So when you are blending shadows together to create a look, whether it's an all brown look or you're bringing in a pop of color, it's good to know whether you're working with warm or cool shades, because if I wanted to have, you know, more of a neutral, natural crease that blends into my skin, I would put some warmer shades in my crease. And then if I wanted a bold pop of color on the lid, I might pick like a blue shimmer, because that is so far from the warm crease that I have. That creates a huge pop and it really makes it stand out. And I know that because blue is a cool color and those warmer browns are obviously warm colors. So that creates a higher contrast in the look. But if I wanted my look to be more seamless and blend more together, I might choose like a gold or an orangey kind of shimmer for the lid that would act as still a pop because the texture is different, but less of a pop because these shades blend together more. I hope that makes sense. All right, lastly, the same concept also applies to every kind of product that you have in your collection. So I don't have a ton of cool toned blushes because I like my blush to, if I want my blush to pop, I'll just apply more, right? So most of my blushes are all warmer toned. So they have a peachy undertone or a golden or orange kind of undertone because I think that blends more into my skin. I am also, because I have a warmer undertone, okay with more orangey bronzers. But I know some people, right, you do want your bronzer to be warmer toned because bronzer is kind of supposed to simulate spending time in the sun, right? And that does warm up your skin, even if you have a cool undertone. But some people have a really hard time finding a good bronzer because it's too warm for their cool undertone. A bronzer, right, I'm okay with a really orangey bronzer, but you might not be, and that's important to know when you're shopping. So I, again, don't have a lot of cool toned lip products in my collection. I wanted to show you an example of 2 different shades of red lipstick that I have. So again, I picked some very high contrast lipsticks with each other so that it's very obvious. So here is our really obvious contrast between one that's very obviously cool and one that is very obviously warm. So these are both red lipsticks, okay? And I know they look totally different, but these are 2 different shades of red lipstick. So this one has a nice cool berry kind of undertone to it, and this one has more of a fiery orange undertone. So this one is from NYX. It's the liquid suede lipstick in the shade Starstruck. So this is that cool berry undertone to the red. And then this one, the warm one, is the Wet n Wild liquid catsuit in the shade Flame of the Game. So I am obsessed with these bright orangey red lips if I wanted to go for a red lip. So I also have a neutral red lipstick. Let me swatch that for you. This is an absolutely ancient lipstick. This was like my dance lipstick for like an embarrassing number of years, but this is from L'Oreal. I'm confident they don't even put it in this packaging anymore, but this is the shade True Red. And what that looks like, you can tell how it's in between, right? It's not as cool as the extremely cool lipstick, but it's not as warm as the extremely warm lipstick. So this is called True Red because it's a true neutral red that didn't have any orange or any blue added to it. All right, so I hope that this video helped you kind of parse out the difference between warm tones and cool tones, because I do think that these are phrases that people in the beauty world throw around a lot, and not everybody, especially people who are newer to makeup, know what they mean. So I hope that this was helpful. I hope you learned something, and I would love for you to comment down below whether you prefer warmer tones or cooler tones, or if you've figured out your undertone, whether you're warm undertoned or cool undertone. Please let me know because I'm super curious. And yes, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to turn on notifications so that you're notified every time I upload a new video. I have new videos every Tuesday about books and every Saturday about beauty. So thank you guys so much for watching, and see you next time. Bye.